I still remember the night I held a loaded Colt to Colonel Marcus Whitmore's chest. Spring of 1893. Devil's Creek, Arizona Territory. The man who'd been hunting me for evidence I carried. Finally cornered. His eyes weren't scared. They were calculating. Like he was already planning how to spin my death to the territorial marshal. Belle stood behind me in that silk nightgown, her dark hair catching lamplight, breathing shallow with fear. Kate gripped her shotgun by the stairs, knuckles white. "Pull that trigger, you son of a bitch," Whitmore whispered, "and you'll hang for murder." I could have done it. Should have, maybe. One squeeze and all our troubles disappear. But I didn't. Made a different choice that night. One that changed everything. Maybe I was a fool. Or maybe that's the only reason I'm still breathing to tell you this story. What would you have done, partner? Pour yourself a drink. If this tale's worth hearing, hit that subscribe and let me know where you're listening from. We got a long night ahead. March 1893. I rode into Devil's Creek with $12, a half-dead horse, and enough ghosts to fill a cemetery. The economic panic had cleaned me out. Lost my cattle business, my ranch, everything I'd built after leaving the cavalry. But Devil's Creek, Christ, partner. That place was beautiful in its dying. Silver boomtown gone bust. Maybe 40 souls clinging to life among the abandoned claims. And right in the heart of it all sat the Silver Dollar Saloon, painted fresh white with green trim, oil lamps glowing warm against the desert twilight. I pushed through those batwing doors, expecting stale beer and broken dreams. Instead, I found her. Isabella Rodriguez, Belle to her friends, stood behind the mahogany bar, doing ledger work. Mexican-American, maybe 32, with raven black hair that caught light like water. She wore a burgundy dress that hugged curves God had taken extra time crafting. When she looked up, those dark eyes appraised me like she was reading my soul's balance sheet. "We have a guest," she said to the blonde woman collecting poker chips from a corner table. Her voice carried just a trace of Spanish accent, smooth as aged whiskey. Catherine O'Sullivan, Kate, turned toward me. Irish-American, younger than Belle, with hair like spun gold and eyes sharp as cut glass. Her white blouse was properly buttoned, but somehow still managed to hint at the feminine form beneath. She had the bearing of a woman who'd faced hard choices and made peace with them. "You've got the look of a soldier, kid," Kate said, studying my posture. Her Irish accent carried a hint of mockery. "Officer?" I nodded, settling at the bar. "That obvious?" Belle's lips curved in a smile that promised secrets. "We can accommodate, both room and meal handsome. The question is, what brings a former cavalry officer to a dying silver town with careful eyes and empty pockets? Smart women? Dangerous combination of beauty and brains." The handsome rolled off Belle's tongue with just enough warmth to make my pulse quicken. I accepted the whiskey Belle poured. The liquor burned good, better than I'd tasted in months. "Just passing through, ma'am. Looking for work, maybe a fresh start." "Fresh start from what, Greenhorn?" Kate asked, joining us. She moved with fluid grace, like a cat pretending to be domesticated. The nickname stung because it was partly true. I was green to this kind of life, drifting without purpose. That's when I should have lied. Should have spun some story about seeking opportunity in mining country. Instead, something in their eyes, understanding, maybe, or recognition of a fellow survivor, made me tell truth. Lost everything in the panic. Business partner embezzled what the bank didn't take. My wife, she'd been dead 3 years by then. Consumption. So when the bottom fell out, I shrugged. Figured it was time to drift. Belle's expression softened, and the way she looked at me changed. Less appraising, more protective. Well, handsome, Devil's Creek specializes in fresh starts. Though I should warn you, we have our own complications. Such as? The women exchanged glances. Kate spoke first. There's a man named Colonel Marcus Whitmore. Represents some Eastern mining consortium. They want to buy up all the remaining claims in this valley for a railroad spur. Railroad money's good money, I said. It would be, Bell replied, if they offered fair prices. Instead, they make lowball offers, then apply pressure. When folks decline. What kind of pressure? Kate's jaw tightened. Legal harassment, credit problems. Sometimes men with guns show up to discuss mineral rights. I looked around the saloon. Clean, well-maintained, obviously profitable, despite the town's decline. You own this place? Inherited it from my late husband, Bell said, along with a small silver claim up canyon. Papers are all proper and legal. We run an honest business. Then what's the problem? Bell and Kate shared another look. Longer this time. Like they were deciding whether to trust me with something dangerous. The problem, kid, Bell said finally, her voice taking on a more serious tone, is that we're the last holdouts. Everyone else has sold out, or been convinced to leave. Our claim happens to sit right where Whitmore wants to run his railroad. So sell. Take what you can get and move on. Kate's eyes flashed fire. This is our home, our livelihood. Why should we abandon it? Because some Eastern moneymen decide they want it? Good question. One I'd been asking myself for months about my own losses. Besides, Bell added, voice dropping lower, we know what happens to places like this when the corporations take over. They strip everything valuable, import their own workers, leave nothing for the locals. Devil's Creek would become a ghost town within 2 years. I studied these women. Bell, with her quiet strength and calculating eyes. Kate, with her fierce pride and protective instincts. Both beautiful, both intelligent, both refusing to be victims, and both looking at me like maybe I was the answer to prayers they hadn't dared speak aloud. What exactly are you asking me, ladies? Belle leaned forward, close enough that I caught her scent, lavender and leather, feminine strength and dangerous curves. We're asking if you'd consider staying a while, handsome. We need a man with your background around here. The way she said it, partner. That wasn't just about my military experience. 3 days later, I understood exactly what kind of trouble these women faced. I was checking the saloon's back entrance. Old cavalry habits die hard when hoofbeats announced visitors. Through the window, I watched 6 men dismount. Well-dressed, well-armed, and well aware they owned whatever they surveyed. The man in the tailored suit had to be Colonel Marcus Whitmore. 50-ish, with silver hair and the bearing of someone accustomed to being obeyed. His eyes swept the building like he was already calculating renovation costs. Belle emerged from behind the bar as they entered. She changed into a black dress that hugged her figure like a second skin, neckline cut just low enough to distract without being vulgar. Her hair was pinned up, revealing the graceful curve of her neck. Every movement seemed calculated to project confidence while hinting at the feminine power beneath. Kate positioned herself by the poker table, wearing a green dress that complemented her eyes and accentuated her slim waist. She held a deck of cards, shuffling them with steady hands that belied the tension in her shoulders. Colonel Whitmore, Belle said, voice steady, to what do we owe the pleasure? Whitmore's gaze lingered on her curves before meeting her eyes. Miss Rodriguez, Miss O'Sullivan, I trust you've had time to reconsider our generous offer. We have, Kate replied, still shuffling cards. The answer remains no. That's unfortunate. Whitmore's tone carried the weight of implied consequences. You see, ladies, the territorial government has concerns about irregularities in your business license. I stepped out of the shadows. What kind of irregularities? Whitmore's men tensed, hands drifting toward weapons. The colonel himself remained calm, appraising me like a new chess piece on the board. And you are? I'm what you might call interested in the lady's welfare. Belle moved closer to me, close enough that her arm brushed mine. The contact sent heat through my veins that had nothing to do with the whiskey I'd been drinking. Our friend here is considering a business partnership with us, Colonel. Business partnership? Whitmore's smile was cold as winter wind. His eyes studied me with calculating intensity. What kind of business would that be, Mr. He let the question hang, fishing for a name I wasn't inclined to give. Kate set down the cards and joined us, positioning herself on my other side. Security consulting, she said smoothly. Seems like there might be a market for that kind of service around here. Indeed. Whitmore's eyes narrowed, still trying to place me. You have the bearing of a military man, partner. What unit? The casual partner felt like a test, but I kept my expression neutral. 7th Cavalry. But that was a long time ago. Ah. Something flickered in Whitmore's eyes. Recognition, maybe, or suspicion. The 7th has quite a reputation. Tell me, did you know Captain Patrick McCready? Killed at Wounded Knee in 1890. My blood went cold. Patrick had been my older brother. But how did Whitmore know to ask about him? I knew of him, I said carefully. He filed certain reports about irregularities in military supply contracts. Reports that caused considerable embarrassment to some very important people. The pieces clicked together. Whitmore wasn't just after the land. He was fishing, trying to connect me to Patrick's evidence. But he didn't know for certain. Not yet. Belle's hand found mine, fingers intertwining. Her touch was warm, reassuring, but I could feel her pulse racing. Gentlemen, I said carefully, I think there's been some misunderstanding. I'm just a drifter looking for honest work. Of course you are, partner. Whitmore straightened his cufflinks, the false familiarity in his voice making my skin crawl. Well, ladies, you now have 48 hours to reconsider our offer. After that, he shrugged. Territorial law can be quite strict about business compliance. After they left, the three of us sat in heavy silence. Kate poured whiskey for everyone. Belle moved to the window, watching the dust settle from their departure. They're looking for someone, she said quietly. Someone connected to those military reports. I looked up sharply. What do you know about that? Kate met my eyes. A cavalry captain stopped here 2 years ago, right before he died at Wounded Knee. He was carrying papers, evidence of gun running to Apache renegades, supply contract fraud, payroll padding. He said if anything happened to him. He wanted someone trustworthy to have them, Belle finished. Someone who'd know what to do with them. You've had them all this time, Belle nodded. Hidden in the mine shaft. We never looked at them, never used them. But somehow Whitmore suspects. I drained my whiskey, mind racing. Patrick had always been the righteous one, the brother who believed justice mattered. Now his crusade was putting these women in danger. So that's what this is really about, I said. It's not just the land, it's the evidence. Which means, Kate said, voice tight, we're all in this now. Together. Belle turned from the window, and something in her expression made my breath catch. She walked toward me with that fluid grace, stopping close enough that I could see flecks of gold in her dark eyes. The Question is, handsome, are you willing to fight for something worth saving? For people who matter? Her hand touched my cheek, soft fingers tracing the scar an Apache arrow had left years ago. The gesture was intimate, protective, arousing, all at once. Because if you are, she whispered, we could use a partner. In every sense of the word. Kate's hand settled on my shoulder, her touch electric through my shirt fabric. What would you have done, partner? Walk away from the danger, or stay for something that might be worth dying for? That night changed everything. I'd been lying awake, staring at ceiling beams and thinking about Patrick's papers hidden in that mine shaft, when soft footsteps approached my door. A gentle knock, barely audible. Belle stood in the hallway, wearing a silk nightgown that caught moonlight filtering through the window. The fabric clung to curves that would tempt a saint, and I was no saint. Her dark hair fell loose around her shoulders, framing a face that belonged in Renaissance paintings. Couldn't sleep either, handsome, she whispered, the endearment softer now, more intimate in the darkness. I stepped aside, letting her enter. She moved to the window, gazing out at Devil's Creek's empty streets. Moonlight outlined her profile, the graceful line of her neck, the gentle swell of her breasts beneath silk. Tell me about your wife, she said softly. Strange request, but something in her voice made me answer honestly. Maria. Met her in Santa Fe when I was stationed there. She was gentle, kind, everything a soldier dreams of coming home to. You loved her. I did. But love doesn't stop consumption, doesn't prevent death. I moved beside her at the window. She died slowly, partner, coughing up blood, wasting away while I held her hand and promised everything would be fine. Belle's fingers found mine in the darkness. I know about losing someone you love. My husband, Roberto, he was a good man. Weak sometimes, but good. Died in a mine collapse trying to prove himself to the other workers. We stood there, sharing silence and moonlight and the weight of old grief. I'm scared, she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. Not of Whitmore, not of losing the saloon. I'm scared of caring about someone again and watching them get hurt because of me. I turned to face her fully. This close, I could smell her lavender scent, see the vulnerability in her dark eyes that she kept hidden during daylight hours. Belle. She silenced me with a kiss. Soft at first, hesitant, then deeper as my arms wrapped around her. Her body pressed against mine, silk and warmth and desperate need. When we broke apart, both breathing hard, she rested her forehead against my chest. Stay with us, she whispered. Not just for the fight. Stay because. Because what? Because I haven't felt alive in 3 years. Not until you walk through those doors, handsome. Before I could answer, another soft knock interrupted. Kate entered, fully dressed, but with hair mussed like she'd been tossing in bed. Sorry, she said, not sounding sorry at all. Saw the light under the door. Figured you two were having the same conversation I've been having with myself. Belle stepped back from me, but didn't release my hand. What conversation is that? Kate moved to the small table, poured 3 glasses of whiskey from the bottle I kept there. Her green dress hugged her figure, and I couldn't help noticing how it accentuated her curves. About whether we're doing this thing the right way, she said, handing us each a glass. Fighting Whitmore, protecting the town, keeping those papers safe. It's going to get ugly, kid. People might die. The way she said kid now carried affection instead of mockery, like she was claiming the right to tease me. Probably will, I agreed. And there's something else. Kate's eyes met mine over her whiskey. Belle and I, we've been more than business partners for almost a year now. sharing a bed, sharing everything. But we both know something's been missing. Belle's cheeks flushed, but she didn't deny it. We care about each other, but we're not complete, Kate finished. Not the way we could be. Not without. Without what? I asked, though I suspected I knew. Kate moved closer, close enough that I could smell her rose-scented soap, see the pulse beating in her throat. Without someone who makes us both feel like whole women again. Someone worth fighting for. Belle's hand tightened on mine. It's not conventional, handsome. Not what most people would understand. But out here, in a place like Devil's Creek. Conventional rules don't apply, I said. Kate nodded. The three of us together, we're stronger than any of us alone. In business, in battle, she gestured toward the bed. In everything. Partner, I won't lie to you. The idea of these two incredible women, both wanting me, both willing to share, it stirred things in me I'd thought died with Maria. But it was more than physical desire. These women saw something in me worth saving, worth fighting beside. What exactly are you proposing? I asked. Belle set down her whiskey, moved close enough to press against my side. We're proposing a partnership, handsome. All three of us. We fight Whitmore together, protect the town together, build a life together, and share a bed together, Kate added with a smile that made my pulse race. Her tone had shifted again, calling me something unspoken but warmer than kid. I looked at these two remarkable women. Belle, with her quiet strength and dangerous curves. Kate, with her fierce loyalty and sharp intelligence. They were offering me more than I'd dared dream of. A purpose, a fight, a future. But they were also offering danger. Whitmore wouldn't stop until he had those papers and the land. Men would die before this ended. If we do this, I said finally, there's no going back. Once we make this stand, we see it through to the end. Whatever that looks like. Belle kissed my cheek softly. We wouldn't have it any other way. Kate's lips found my other cheek. So, partners? I pulled them both close, feeling their warmth, their strength, their absolute trust. Partners, I agreed. Outside, coyotes howled in the distance. But inside that room, with these women in my arms, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. I felt home. Dawn came too soon, bringing Whitmore and 8 armed men. I watched from the saloon's upper window as they spread out across the street, professional positions, overlapping fields of fire. Whitmore himself stood in the center, immaculate in his tailored suit, like death dressed for a business meeting. Belle appeared beside me, fully dressed in riding clothes that hugged her curves but allowed for movement. Kate flanked my other side, her hair braided back, green eyes hard as emeralds. Time to end this, I said. Together, handsome, Belle whispered, her hand squeezing mine. I walked downstairs and pushed through the batwing doors, Patrick's evidence tucked inside my vest. The morning sun painted long shadows across Devil's Creek's main street. Colonel Whitmore, I called out. Fancy seeing you here, so early. Well, if it isn't our mysterious drifter. His voice carried across the distance, heavy with mockery. I trust you've reconsidered our discussion. I have. I stepped into the street, hands visible, but ready. Seems to me you've been operating under some false assumptions. Such as? Such as thinking those papers Patrick McCready carried were the only copies. I pulled the envelope from my vest, held it high. See, my brother was smarter than you gave him credit for. He made copies, Colonel. Sent them to friends in Washington, friends in the territorial government, friends in newspapers back east. Whitmore's confidence flickered for the first time. You're bluffing, you son of a bitch. So now, I was the son of a bitch. Interesting how fear changed a man's vocabulary. Am I? I smiled without warmth. Tell me, how do you think the War Department would react to evidence that one of their supply officers was selling rifles to Apache war parties? How about the territorial governor, learning that his appointed officials were taking bribes to look the other way? Behind me, I heard the saloon doors creak. Belle and Kate emerged, each carrying a Winchester rifle with practiced ease. Other doors opened along the street. The blacksmith, the general store owner, the assayer, Devil's Creek's remaining residents, armed and determined. You see, Colonel, I continued, you made one critical mistake. You assumed this was about money, about land, about business. But it's not. It's about home. It's about people who have decided they're tired of being bullied. Whitmore's men shifted nervously, suddenly outnumbered by angry townsfolk. This isn't over, Whitmore said, but his voice lacked conviction. No, I agreed, it's not. But here's how it ends. You and your consortium withdraw your offer. Permanently. You find another route for your railroad, and in exchange, those copies of Patrick's evidence stay buried. And if I refuse? I smiled, thinking of Belle's soft lips, Kate's fierce embrace, the life we were building together. Then we see who's faster, Colonel. Your hired guns, or a man fighting for everything that matters to him? The standoff stretched like a held breath. Then Whitmore nodded curtly to his men. They mounted up, wheeled their horses, and rode out of Devil's Creek in a cloud of dust and defeat. Belle's arm slipped around my waist. Kate pressed against my other side. The three of us stood together, watching our enemies disappear into the desert morning. So, Kate said with a grin, what now, partner? The way she said it now, partner, carried weight, promise, belonging. I looked at these incredible women who'd given me back my purpose, my passion, my reason to fight. Now, I said, we build something worth keeping. That was 15 years ago, partner. 15 years of the best damn life a broken-down cavalry officer ever had right to expect. Devil's Creek never did become a ghost town. Railroad came through eventually, but on our terms. The Silver Dollar Saloon grew into the finest establishment in the territory, Belle's business sense and Kate's sharp wit proving as valuable as any silver vein. The three of us? Well, that's a story conventional folks wouldn't understand. But love isn't always conventional, is it? Sometimes it's a Mexican widow who teaches you that strength comes in many forms. Sometimes it's an Irish hellcat who shows you that loyalty runs deeper than blood. Sometimes it's finding family in the most unexpected places. Belle and I married in the spring of '94. Proper ceremony. White dress, the whole affair. Kate stood as maid of honor, smiling like she held a secret the whole world should know. Which, in a way, she did. We lost Kate to pneumonia in '17. Belle and I buried her on the hill overlooking the mine shaft, where Patrick's papers stayed hidden until the day we burned them, justice served and debts paid. Even at the end, she called me partner with that same affectionate mockery. Belle passed 2 years back. Cancer, the doc said. She went peaceful, holding my hand, whispering about Roberto and Kate waiting for her somewhere beyond the desert horizon. Right up to the end, I was her handsome, even when these old bones were anything but. I sit here now, 73 years old, in a house too quiet and full of ghosts that smell like lavender and roses. People in town call me old man now, or brother, when they're feeling respectful. The young ones still say Mister when they want something. They don't know about the blood on these hands, the choices made in shadows, the love shared between three souls who found each other in the wilderness. Maybe that makes me a hypocrite. Maybe it makes me lucky. Maybe it just makes me human. The thing is, partner, right and wrong ain't always as clear as we'd like them to be. Sometimes you've got to make your choices and live with the consequences. Sometimes the only redemption available is the kind you build with your own two hands, and the people willing to stand beside you when the shooting starts. If you've listened this far, you understand something about second chances, about love that doesn't follow rules, about fighting for what matters, even when the odds are stacked against you. Hit that subscribe button, pour yourself another drink, and next time we'll talk about the night the Apache came calling, and how three people in love can hold off an army when they've got something worth defending. Until then, salud, partner. May your aim be true and your whiskey smooth.